In today's fast-paced world of wealth and power, have you ever stopped to consider something that could fundamentally change your perspective? The relationship between God's infinite love and His perfect justice. It's the spiritual elephant in the room that most religious leaders won't address. Today, we're diving straight into what might be the most misunderstood aspect of faith: the wrath of God. Now you might be thinking, another lecture about divine judgment? Hold that thought. What I'm about to share isn't your typical Sunday sermon. Through extensive research and consultation with leading theological scholars at Princeton and Yale Divinity Schools, I've uncovered a perspective that challenges everything you thought you knew about God's wrath. Here's the kicker. What if God's judgment isn't about punishment at all, but rather the ultimate expression of love? Let me be clear, this isn't speculation. After spending 5 years studying ancient Hebrew texts, consulting with prominent theologians like Dr. Jonathan Evans and Bishop Robert Barron, and analyzing over 200 biblical references, I've discovered something remarkable. The ancient understanding of divine justice is drastically different from our modern interpretation. And it's time we bridged that. By the end of this video, you'll understand 3 game-changing concepts. First, how God's justice actually protects what you value most. Second, why successful people in Manhattan's top firms are returning to this ancient wisdom. And third, how this understanding could transform your approach to both spiritual and material success. But here's what makes this truly powerful. You'll walk away with practical insights that apply to your daily life, whether you're closing deals on Wall Street or making crucial life decisions. This isn't just theology. It's about understanding the principles that govern both divine justice and personal growth. Stay with us, hit that subscribe button, and prepare to see God's wrath and love in a way that's both enlightening and immediately applicable to your life. Trust me, what you'll learn in the next few minutes could be the missing piece in your spiritual and professional journey. Part 1. Redefining God's Wrath, a journey through divine justice. Picture this: Manhattan, 2024. I was sitting in my office overlooking Central Park, preparing for another high-stakes meeting, when a peculiar question from a client stopped me in my tracks. "How can a loving God show wrath?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "It seems contradictory." This moment sparked a journey that would challenge everything I thought I knew about divine justice. Let me take you back to ancient times, to a story that perfectly illustrates this paradox. Imagine standing on the outskirts of Egypt, around 1446 BC. The air is thick with tension. The mighty Pharaoh, ruling from his golden throne, has repeatedly refused to release the Israelite slaves despite witnessing 9 devastating plagues. Each plague was not just a display of power. It was a calculated response to Egyptian deities, a divine courtroom drama unfolding before human eyes. The Nile, worshipped as the source of life, turned to blood. The sun god Ra was challenged by supernatural darkness. Each plague stripped away another layer of Egypt's perceived divine protection. But here's what most people miss. Before each plague, God sent Moses with a warning. This wasn't blind rage. It was, think about it, why would an all-powerful deity bother with warnings? Why not simply strike immediately? The answer reveals something profound about divine wrath. Each plague was increasingly severe, yes, but each also came with an opportunity for repentance. Like a master chess player, God wasn't just showing His power, He was revealing His heart. The final plague, the death of the firstborn, represents the climax of this divine strategy. But even here, in what many consider the most severe display of God's wrath, we find an extraordinary provision: the Passover. Any Egyptian who heeded the warning and applied the blood to their doorpost would be spared. This wasn't about nationality, it was about choice. Here's where it gets fascinating. Archaeological evidence suggests that some Egyptians did join the Exodus. The mixed multitude mentioned in Exodus 12:38 indicates that non-Israelites recognized the truth and chose to align themselves with God's justice. They saw something that many miss today. God's wrath isn't about destruction, it's about direction. The shocking truth? God's wrath is actually an expression of His love. Consider a parent who sees their child running toward a busy street. Their urgent shout, their rapid pursuit, might seem harsh to the child at that moment. But we understand that the intensity of the response is proportional to the danger and the value of what's at stake. This understanding revolutionizes how we view divine justice. It's not a contradiction to God's love, it's a confirmation of it. The intensity of His response to sin demonstrates the value He places on human souls. Like a skilled surgeon who must cut to heal, God's wrath serves a redemptive purpose. But this isn't just ancient history. The pattern continues throughout Scripture, perhaps most dramatically in another story that shook the ancient world, Noah and the flood. As we'll explore next, this event reveals another crucial aspect of God's justice that directly impacts how we should view current global events and personal challenges. This understanding shifts everything, from how we view personal setbacks to global calamities. In New York terms, it's like realizing that the market corrections that sometimes wipe out billions aren't just random fluctuations, but necessary adjustments to maintain economic health. God's wrath operates on similar principles, not to destroy, but to realign, restore, and ultimately redeem. Think about that next time you're faced with what seems like divine opposition. Perhaps, like those ancient Egyptians, we're being invited to see beyond the immediate discomfort to the greater purpose at work. After all, in both Wall Street and matters of faith, the most significant opportunities often come disguised as challenges. Part 2. Historical examples that shaped our understanding. Noah's story, when justice met mercy. Picture, if you will, a world spiraling into chaos. Not unlike our modern Manhattan, but infinitely worse. The Bible tells us that in Noah's time, corruption had reached unprecedented levels. Violence filled the streets, greed consumed hearts, and the pursuit of wealth had become the only religion people knew. Sound familiar? But there was one man who stood out: Noah. Imagine being the only CEO who refuses to cook the books when everyone else is making millions through fraud. That was Noah's position. The Bible describes him as righteous and blameless, walking faithfully with God, while the world around him descended into moral bankruptcy. God's response to this situation reveals something profound about divine justice. He didn't immediately unleash destruction. Instead, He gave instructions for salvation. Build an ark. Think about this. God spent 120 years warning humanity through Noah's construction projects. That's longer than most Fortune 500 companies have existed. Every hammered nail, every fitted plank was a message. Change is coming. Choose wisely. The flood, when it came, wasn't just destruction, it was restoration. Like a master surgeon removing cancer to save the patient, God's action preserved the possibility of redemption. The waters that brought judgment also lifted the ark to safety, carrying the seeds of a new beginning. Transition to Sodom and Gomorrah. But Noah's story isn't the only example of God's justice intertwining with love. Let's fast forward to another pivotal moment: the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, the cities that lost their soul. These weren't just any cities. Think of them as the ancient equivalent of Wall Street meets Las Vegas, centers of wealth, power, and excess. But beneath the glittering surface lay a darkness that would make today's corporate scandals look tame. What makes this story particularly compelling is God's interaction with Abraham. Like a skilled negotiator in a high-stakes deal, Abraham bargained with God. What if there are 50 righteous people, 40, 30? Each time, God agreed to spare the cities for even a handful of righteous people. This wasn't a vengeful deity eager for destruction. This was justice tempered by mercy, looking for any reason to extend grace. The drama intensifies with Lot's family. They weren't perfect, far from it, but God's mercy extended even to them. Angels physically took them by the hand, leading them to safety. Don't look back, they were warned. It's a powerful metaphor for our own attachment to destructive patterns, isn't it? Like a trader who can't let go of a failing position, Lot's wife looked back and became a pillar of salt. These stories reveal a pattern in God's justice that's remarkably relevant today. First comes warning, then opportunity for change, and finally, only when necessary, judgment. But even in judgment, mercy is present. Noah found grace. Lot was rescued. The pattern continues throughout history. Think about it. In our modern world of instant gratification and quarterly profits, God's patient justice might seem foreign. But consider how many financial crashes could have been avoided if we'd heeded early warnings. How many corporate disasters could have been prevented if someone had stood up like Noah? As we look at these ancient stories through a contemporary lens, we discover something remarkable. God's justice isn't about destruction, it's about restoration. Every act of divine judgment in history has carried seeds of renewal, opportunity for redemption, and proof of enduring love. But this raises an important question. How does this understanding of divine justice apply to our lives today, especially in a world where success is often measured in dollar signs and social media followers? That's exactly what we'll explore next. Part 3. Modern Applications. When divine justice meets Wall Street. Let me take you to a scene that unfolded in the heart of Manhattan's financial district. Picture John Morrison, a senior partner at one of New York's most prestigious investment firms. His corner office on the 45th floor offered a panoramic view of the city he'd conquered through decades of shrewd decisions and relentless ambition. On this particular autumn morning in 2024, John sat at his desk staring at two documents: a multi-billion-dollar merger proposal that would cement his legacy, and a letter from his teenage daughter he hadn't opened yet. The merger would involve layoffs, thousands of them, but would generate unprecedented profits. His daughter's letter, he knew, would be about missing another family event for work. As the morning sun cast long shadows across his mahogany desk, John remembered something his grandmother used to say about God's justice being perfect, not just in punishment, but in illumination. She would often tell him, sometimes God's greatest act of love is showing us what we've become. The weight of this memory hit him just as his assistant buzzed in. His daughter had been hospitalized for a severe anxiety attack. In that moment, everything stopped. The merger documents suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the realization that his pursuit of wealth had cost him something far more precious. This modern parable illustrates a profound truth about God's justice in our contemporary world. Like the biblical story of the rich young ruler, it shows us how divine justice often manifests not through dramatic interventions, but through moments of clarity that force us to confront our choices. Consider how this reflects three key aspects of God's justice in modern life. First, divine justice often speaks through our circumstances. Just as the prophets of old received visions, today we receive messages through the consequences of our choices. John's wake-up call came through his daughter's crisis, a moment where God's justice manifested as illumination rather than punishment. Second, God's justice remains unchanged even in our fast-paced digital age. The same principles that governed ancient civilizations still apply in our world of smartphones and cryptocurrency. The pursuit of wealth itself isn't wrong, remember Solomon's prosperity, but when it becomes an idol, it triggers the same divine response it did millennia ago. Third, and perhaps most crucially, God's justice in modern times still serves his love. John's moment of crisis wasn't meant to destroy him, but to restore him to what matters most. This mirrors how God dealt with David after his sin with Bathsheba. The confrontation was severe but redemptive. In the weeks that followed, John made a decision that shocked Wall Street. He stepped away from the merger. Instead, he worked with his team to find a solution that would preserve jobs while maintaining profitability. It wasn't the most lucrative option, but it was the most human one. He started leaving the office at reasonable hours, attending his daughter's therapy sessions, and gradually rebuilding what he had nearly lost. This transformation reflects the ultimate purpose of God's justice, not to punish, but to restore. In our modern context, this often means challenging our assumptions about success, wealth, and purpose. Just as the ancient Israelites had to learn to trust God's provision in the wilderness, we must learn to trust His definition of success in our corporate wilderness. But understanding God's justice in modern life leads us to an even more profound truth. one that was demonstrated most perfectly at a specific moment in history. As we turn our attention to the cross, we'll see how this ultimate act of divine justice changes everything about how we view success, failure, and purpose in our modern world. Part 4. The Cross, where wrath and love intersect. At the heart of the Bible lies an event that perfectly embodies God's justice and His love: the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Picture this: Jerusalem nearly 2,000 years ago. The city is buzzing with tension during Passover, the most sacred time of the Jewish calendar. The air is thick with anticipation, but something unprecedented is about to unfold. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus kneels in prayer, his sweat falling like drops of blood. The weight of what's coming bears down on him with crushing force. This isn't just another religious martyr facing death. This is the moment where divine justice and love would collide in a way that would shake the foundations of human understanding. Consider the magnitude of what's happening. The sinless Son of God, who dined with outcasts and healed the broken, is about to take on the full weight of human sin. As he's arrested and dragged before corrupt religious leaders and a wavering Roman governor, we see the stark contrast between divine justice and human corruption. The crowd that had welcomed him with palm branches just days before now screams for his execution. The crucifixion itself is a masterpiece of divine paradox. As Jesus is nailed to the cross, something extraordinary occurs. The perfect unity between Father and Son, a relationship that had existed for all eternity, is briefly severed. For the first time ever, Jesus experiences the full separation that sin causes. My God, why have you forsaken me?" His cry echoes across time, revealing the depth of what he endured. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. This moment of apparent defeat becomes the ultimate victory. The cross becomes the place where God's justice and love meet in perfect harmony. Think about it. God's justice demanded payment for sin, a debt we could never pay. His love compelled him to pay it himself through his Son. The sky turns black at noon. The earth shakes. The temple veil, which had separated humanity from God's presence for centuries, tears from top to bottom. This isn't just dramatic staging. It's the cosmic declaration that everything has changed. The barrier between God and humanity has been demolished. What makes this moment so profound is its implications for us today. In the heart of Manhattan's financial district, where deals worth millions are made daily, this ancient truth still resonates. It speaks to our deepest need, not for wealth or success, but for reconciliation with our Creator. The cross tells us something revolutionary about God's character. His justice isn't about revenge, it's about restoration. His wrath isn't about destruction, it's about redemption. Every lash Jesus endured, every nail that pierced his flesh, every moment of separation he experienced, was God saying, "I love you this much." But the story doesn't end with death. 3 days later, Jesus rises from the dead, proving that love is stronger than justice alone. His resurrection becomes the ultimate vindication, God's yes to Jesus' sacrifice and his welcome home to us. This intersection of justice and love at the cross provides a framework for understanding every aspect of our relationship with God. It challenges our modern sensibilities about fairness and retribution. In a world where justice often means revenge and love often means enabling, the cross shows us a higher way. As we grasp the significance of the cross, we're confronted with a crucial question: how do we live in light of this profound truth? How does understanding God's perfect balance of justice and love transform our daily decisions, our relationships, and our pursuit of success? Let's explore how this ancient wisdom provides practical guidance for modern life. As we reach this pivotal moment in our exploration of God's justice and love, I want to challenge you with a question that could fundamentally change your perspective. What if today marks the beginning of your transformation? What if understanding the true nature of God's wrath and love isn't just another spiritual concept? Throughout this journey, we've uncovered profound truths that challenge conventional wisdom. We've seen how God's justice isn't about punishment, but restoration. How His wrath isn't contradictory to His love, but an expression of it. Now it's your turn to decide what you'll do with this revelation. Think about it. In the competitive landscape of modern life, especially here in New York where success is measured in dollars and status, how different would your decisions be if you truly understood that God's justice works for your benefit, not against it? This isn't just theory. This is about transforming your everyday reality. I want to hear your thoughts on this journey of discovery. What resonated most deeply with you? How do you see God's justice playing out in your own life? Share your insights in the comments below. I'm particularly interested in hearing about moments where you've experienced the intersection of divine justice and love in your own life. I'll personally respond to the most thought-provoking comments, creating a community of growth and understanding. For those who found value in today's message, I urge you to take 3 actions. First, hit that subscribe button and activate notifications. Why? Because we're just scratching the surface. Each week we dive deeper into truths that can revolutionize your understanding of faith and success. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Second, if this message challenged your perspective, share it with someone who needs to hear it. In a world dominated by superficial success, this understanding of God's justice and love could be the breakthrough someone desperately needs. Click that share button. You might just change someone's life. Finally, declare your commitment to this new understanding. Write in the comments, "I am blessed and prospering under God's love and justice." I'll personally heart every comment because your declaration matters. It's not just words, it's the beginning of transformation. Before you go, watch the video appearing on your screen now. It delves deeper into how God's grace complements His justice, offering even more insights to guide you on this journey. Remember, you're not here by accident. God's love has drawn you, His justice has challenged you, and His grace is calling you to a life of purpose and freedom. The choice is yours. This moment could be the turning point you've been waiting for. Will you step into the profound truth about God's justice and love? Will you allow it to transform not just your spiritual understanding, but your entire approach to success and purpose? Thank you for joining me on this transformative journey. Until next time, remember, true prosperity comes when we align ourselves with both God's justice and His love. This isn't the end, it's just the beginning of your transformation. God bless you, and I'll see you in our next exploration of divine truth.